Welcome back to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the Blackbird Deluxe from VS Audio. So I don't know about you, but I've always felt like my loyalty in the amplifier world has been split my entire career, my entire time playing guitar. I have always been in a position where I oscillate wildly between Fender style and Vox style amplifiers. I will go through phases where Fender amps are all I want. I want that mid scoop, I want that round low end, I want that kind of clean, platformy, low gain thing. And then I go through phases where all I want is that chime and sparkle and clarity of an AC amplifier. That puts you in a weird spot if you're somebody like me, who ends up writing a pretty strong 50-50 split between those two types of amplifiers. What do you do when you have a show, when you go on tour? Do you take both? Do you buy one of the amp modelers that does, a Fender, a Vox, and a Marshall? Do you get a Kemper? What route do you go down, especially if you found an amplifier that you really like, but it doesn't do everything you want it to do? This is the Blackbird from VS Audio. I am currently in the throes of a major AC30 obsession right now. I am using, as you saw in that intro clip, and as you will hear in the sound samples in this video, the Universal Audio Ruby 63, their AC30 style amp modeler. It's a very specific thing that I am very into right now, but I am still finding that I want Fender sounds sometimes, and this is a lifesaver for that kind of thing. The Blackbird Deluxe is an all analog vintage style recreation of Fender Preamp section and Vibrato section, being a bias tremolo, of course. On the right hand side, you have the preamp section with an era switch to toggle between brown panel and black panel voicings. And on the left side, you have a normal and bright channel for that Vibrato circuit. That Vibrato circuit is incredibly lush, incredibly easy to dial in, very, very rich and syrupy and present, and it's really wonderful. You heard it on that intro. You're going to hear a lot more of it coming up. And then you have that front channel right there, the preamp side, where you have your drive, your volume, your tone, and your bypass, and it is phenomenal. It has a ton of character in the grit and the breakup and the articulation. It feels like it has a lot of that really wonderful Fender style mid-scoopy clarity that I really love. And I'm finding that it really is something super potent and powerful going into something like an AC30 style amp modeler. It helps me to kind of approximate the best of both worlds in a way where both sound really excellent. Now, you can also run this into any clean pedal platform for some great breakup. You could run this into a Fender amp as well and just, double down on something good already. But for the purposes of this video, we are looking at it from the perspective of getting a second rich and robust amp voicing out of your current situation. And what's really great about this is you've also got an effects loop in here that is always on. And the reason that kind of is cool is two reasons. Number one, you've got the ability to put delay or reverb or whatever in between that breakup and that tremolo, so you can get that wet channel into the vibrato circuit so that your pulsating bias tremolo sounds kind of have a longer decay and a more rich presence to the effect, without having to grit up any reverb if you want to keep it nice and clean. But secondly, like I said, you might have heard that I said that it's always on. That effects loop is always active, which means if you throw a reverb in the middle of there, you can throw a spring reverb in there, a big ambient reverb like I did. You have access to that reverb regardless of whether or not you're using your preamp circuit or your vibrato circuit. You can keep an always on effect in the middle there, something that you always have in your rig, and then throw that tremolo behind it or throw that drive circuit in front of it. Super convenient, really, really helpful stuff. Like I said, there's not a whole lot else to say about this. This is an analog recreation of some amazing vintage Fender tones. You heard it on the intro. You're going to hear a bunch of great stuff in these sound samples. So VS Audio, thank you for sending this out. The timing was phenomenal, and it really does sound just wonderful. So let's jump into some sound samples. Okay, before we dive into some sound samples with the Blackbird, let's go ahead and talk through our signal chain and our context that we are playing in. I am playing my Jennings Voyager with McNelly Stagger Swagger pickups into the Benson Germanium Boost Cali 76 compressor by Origin and Benson Preamp. From there we go down to the Chispless Audio Thermae into the Blackbird Deluxe with the Walrus Audio Slotva in the effects loop of that pedal. From there, we go to the Universal Audio Ruby 63, which is an AC30 style amp in a box, set to be the kind of brilliant channel, aka like the top boost channel. The reason that we are going with this and not one of my kind of various Fender amp in a boxes is because rather than running a Fender amp modeled preamp into a Fender amp, I wanted to kind of showcase how you can get some cool Fender sounds out of a non-Fender context, which I think is a little bit more interesting considering how much I've been loving the Ruby, but sometimes you want that sound. From there, we go to the Strymon El Cap and Flint, both in stereo, the Pinstripe pedals DISO Plus, out to our DAW, which is Universal Audio's Luna. So we've got all of our drives and everything bypassed. Let's turn off the Blackbird. Just the Ruby, the El Cap, and the Flint, all set pretty subtle. So let's go ahead and give that a listen, and then we'll start digging into some sound samples. So let's go ahead and start things off on the drive side of the Blackbird. We've got the era in the up position, which is brown panel, versus the down position, which is black panel. We've got drive, volume, and tone all at noon, and we'll kind of fine tune from there. I can tell you right off the bat that we'll probably start rolling the tone down before we start rolling it up, because especially into something like a top boost amplifier like the Ruby, you can get really brittle and bright really quickly. And so especially for lead stuff, we're going to roll that tone back. But let's start things off on brown panel and start tweaking some sounds. Let's bring that volume up a little bit. So you can hear it gets pretty bright pretty quickly. So especially for those leads, I like to bring down that tone. One of the things that I immediately really like about the preamp on this thing is how versatile and articulate that drive channel is. You can really dig in for some serious kind of like vintage Fender like amp gain. Or you can really, just with your playing dynamics, clean that way back up. I also really like the amount of gain on tap with this thing. I think it stays articulate, even like some really like high gain environments. Again, still articulate. You can really take that tone almost to the floor when you're playing kind of predominantly lead stuff, but you will start to kind of muddy up your low end. I'll give you that warning. So let's take that tone way, way down and hear how it still like sings pretty well for your lead guitar stuff. But like your like low notes. versus I do really love that breakup though. Just a little bit like really nice vintage hair to that. Versus and then you can really kind of like hit that harder with a boost like this and get some really good like two-stage gain out of it. So let's jump over to the black panel and give that a listen. So already, more mid-scooped, less low end overall, a lot of clarity. Still a ton of articulation at high gains. I really love how kind of like glassy and shimmery that is. There's a lot of like shine to, especially in the neck position, and especially with humbuckers. I find that so often I find myself making guitar choices depending on whether or not I'm playing rhythm or lead, or more specifically like kind of like round chimey cleans or big like bitey leads, because humbuckers for me, with the way that I like to stagger gain structure, generally gets really muddy really quickly. So it's really nice to have something that kind of holds together even at those higher gain stages, that works on that neck pickup, where this, even with that tone rolled back, also works when you jump over to the neck position. And it's so articulate that I'm willing to guess we could probably throw a pretty ambient, cool therme thing in front of it. And create something kind of like really ambient and cool that has a lot of presence. So let's take that out. So we've dialed up an ambient tone to kind of showcase that this articulation, even with high gain like this, will still work really wonderfully with a wet effect coming in front of it. So no Blackbird. Okay, let's jump on over to the vibrato. Channel 2 on the Blackbird is a vibrato. And the really cool thing is, one, this vibrato sounds really good. I'm very, very into everything about it, really. I think it's very lush and syrupy and all of the buzzwords that you get sick of hearing about tremolo channels. But I don't care because it sounds really good. So let's just jump into it, and then we'll bring that that Slotva that's in between the two. We'll bring that in after we get kind of an initial sense of how this trem feels. So let's start off with the normal channel with both knobs at noon, and then we will play around with the speed and the intensity, switch to that bright channel, and then make the jump over to adding the Slotva in between the two. And then we'll probably rebuild that same full ambient rig that we had and just kind of do some ambient experimenting after we kind of get some good rock tones out of the way. So right off the bat, like I said, I really like that trem. It's very pulsating, and it makes a big statement, which I like. But it can be very subtle like that, or it gets really deep. And that bright channel. And then the trem goes away really quickly, but that's why we have this Walrus Slotva in the effects loop, because by bringing this in, we get this. Okay, let's put all this together. we interrupt this broadcast.
Hi.
Hi. Can you say hi? Can you wave to the camera? RJ, can you say hi? Say over there. Say hi.
Hi.
There you go. Good job.
Hi.
Buddy. Hi.
Hey, Dada.
Yeah, that's Dada.
Mama.
Mama, mama.